everybody, basically podcast. Quick thing at the start of this, my audio is not going to be great in this episode. The episode after is going to be perfectly fine. Something happened. I was doing Skype this time for this podcast, and Skype messed with the Samson's audio. They recorded it weird to the point that I was 1 decibel. I put up to 30, but there was a bunch of static and fuzz and all that stuff. But through the magic of Jinx's ability with sound, she was able to get a lot of that out of there. So it's pretty good audio, but it's not up to par to what usually we have. So you will notice I will not sound as good as normal, while our guest sounds perfectly fine. So enjoy this one, it's really good. Welcome back, friends, LostScarf here, and it's time for us to have another Basically a Podcast. And today we are having a podcast with Jenesee Gray, Communications Manager at Good Sheperd.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hello. Alright, so what's important is I try to get guests on who, well, they know things that I don't know, which I think is education for everyone. And Good Sheperd is Entertainment. I forgot to say their full name. Entertainment. They are a publisher who published a lot of pretty fun games. They published Monster Train. I love Monster Train. Absolutely love that game.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Hard Reset. Ooh, that's a good one too. John Wick, that's from, I believe it's Mike Bithell. That's a really good one.
Yeah, John Wick X.
There's a lot of really good games that... Hard West as well. Okay, I've played a lot of your guys' games. All of a sudden, I'm noticing.
You're a turn-based tactical fan. Phantom Doctrine, that's another one.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, so I played a lot of your games. Apparently, I didn't realize that. So, Good Sheperd...
Yeah, we're kind of unassuming that way.
There's some really good... publishers out there, they just have really good picks in what they have, and these are really good picks to me. I like a lot of these games I'm looking at here. Didn't realize Monster Train is like the newest hit for me. I dedicated a ridiculous amount of time playing that game. So good pickup on Good Sheperd Entertainment, I think.
Yeah, no, it's the thing that we're focused on at this moment that's most recently launched.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of questions of ignorance when it comes to publishing. Like, what is, just at the most ignorant question, is what is publishing in gaming?
Yeah, it's one of those, behind the scenes, quite literally, things that people don't think about as much. So essentially, a publisher is an entity or company that facilitates the development of a game. So that means financially contributing. That means, in our case, producing, marketing, providing contacts that are valuable, like different composers, different artists, different contractors for voice actors. It's the person, the thing that has like an arsenal of, ways to help a game get made, essentially.
Nice. So, wow. Okay, that's a lot. So it's kind of also like what a kind of producer kind of does stuff like that too, right?
Absolutely. Most publishers, I can only speak generally here. Mm-hmm. Most publishers are producers as well, so they keep the schedule on track. They make sure that the game launches appropriately. If there's any issues, they help with localization. And then, of course, what everyone knows publishers for is the distribution aspect, making sure it gets to the right platforms, making sure that ports happen, things like that.
Yeah, for me, that's the only part I knew as the publisher, though. They put out the games that developer makes, but I didn't know all that other stuff. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
How does one get into publishing?
There's different aspects of publishing for sure. There's like a biz dev aspect, so people that maybe go to school for that or have contacts and that kind of way. There's usually a marketing team, so people that are maybe artistic, graphic designs, people that like to be in PR. That's part of that section of it. And then there's usually a financial aspect of it too, where you're providing some kind of support for developers so that they can get the game off the ground, and that's a little more financial. So there's lots of ways that you can get into publishing.
All right, so there's a lot of course, like college ways, so like business school or management, things like that, or
certainly. the industry is a little strange in the sense that, I mean, the gaming industry is very small, much smaller than you would think. A lot of it is, almost family-like. Everyone knows everyone else in some capacity generally. So if you want to get involved in something like that, and especially, kind of advice for younger people, you should reach out to game developers, reach out to people that are already publishers, kind of widen your circle of friends and get to know people that are doing the thing that you're really interested in doing. And it really is kind of like getting your foot in the door is who you know in a lot of ways, of course, because it's a small industry.
Okay. So just trying to just talk to them. So like, how much would formal education be important compared to just, I don't know, skill or ability to learn?
Well, you should have a base, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity to widen your scope. For us, we've traditionally focused on, I would call them triple I, like indies that are larger indies, like John Wick Hex, somebody like that. So for us as a smaller team, no one person usually focuses on completely one thing. We all wear a lot of hats. Like, for instance, I'm the communications manager, so I write a lot of things, our website, etc. But I'm also the graphic designer who does all the stuff for social, making sure all of, like, if we have an art asset that needs to be done, I'll help our marketing director. Sometimes they will usually reach out to like a contractor for key art and things like that. But for our end, I do a lot of the graphic design. I do a fair bit of the video editing in the past. Social media, do our social media, work with our teams, our community teams to help play test games, early alpha stuff. Like, everyone wears a lot of hats in this industry and in publishing in particular, usually.
Oh, cool. So you've done, so for like the Twitter itself, you did their banner, and did you make their logo, or
for which game are we talking?
For Good Sheperd Entertainment?
No, I did not. That's actually Walter Kostiak, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He was a friend of our creative director, chief creative officer, and he's also a friend of mine as well. He's done like many logos for me. So again, it's somebody that we kind of knew, and he's really quite well known in the industry actually for doing logos. If you ever look him up, I think it's Two Designs, something like that. But yeah, so it's kind of like, okay, well, there's a circle of people that you get to know that are really good at what they do, and then you can kind of call on them to help with stuff. But yeah, like assets, if you're looking at our, I don't know if you're looking at our Twitter feed, like most of the stuff, like little short videos, GIFs I've done, art, all that stuff. A lot of it's graphic design.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, I'm writing all the text for that, everything. So.
Oh! Ooh.
Okay, now I'm nervous.
No, just thinking about as someone as a content creator, just making your own tweets and then having to make tweets for a company. Like, what are are there like eggshells, or just is it very formulaic, or?
Well, different brands have different feels. That's more. We're getting to the blend of social media, but different brands have different voices and different feels, and it's important to work with the developer to kind of establish, how they want to sound and what is important to them. So sometimes developers will do their own social media. In this case, like Monster Train is me. I'm running Monster Train community for helping out with them. They're super active on Discord and really focused on like talking directly with the community for any kind of feedback they have on the game and stuff like that. So I'm handling some of the other items like social media. But yeah, so it's really fun to have a voice, like Monster Train. So I get to be Monster Train every day, as well as Phantom Doctrine, as well as Good Sheperd, as well as some other things. So it's really cool to, as a publisher, we get to help out and kind of do aspects of that allow the team to really focus on the important things, which are making the game.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, all right. So just looking at Monster Train, like, this one where, like, it's one of the little imps, and he's got a bunch of hearts around him, so you made that?
My intern Amy made that, but yes, we the collective have made these things.
That's the thing I've heard from also artists where they try to get a manager for their other things so they can focus on art. Because like sometimes developers are just not the most social people, I'll say.
Well, I mean, sometimes that's true. Sometimes they do run their own accounts, but we've been lucky. Like the Monster Train team, Eugen is their creative. I want to call him creative director, the person who does the art for them. So if you scroll through there, like all those cool creatures that you're seeing, like all that, there's a lot of artists that are really working on stuff like that, and they kind of give you good things to work with if you're going to do graphic design. Like,
Cool. Going back to let's see, a publishing question. Oh yeah, so maybe it's both. When it comes to publishing and game devs, is like you're scouting devs or devs going to you guys? Is it just both of those things?
both of those things, yeah. Sometimes teams come to us looking, to talk about their game and pitch their game. For us as Good Shepherd, the way we work is a little bit different in the sense that we have IPs sometimes or cultural properties that we license, and then we look for developers that we feel like are the right fit for that particular IP. Like, let's say John Wick. We're working with Lionsgate. We have this really cool, idea that we want to make a game about John Wick, and then we're looking for the right developer that can come up with an idea, an original idea on how to kind of reimagine that IP in a way that is successful. So that's how Bithell Games comes in, where they have this wonderful strategy on how John Wick is more literally a strategist, and how he's really thinking about every single move he makes, and he's a very like deliberate guy in everything he does. And then they come to, with that idea, and that's kind of a way to reimagine some things.
Right, that's pretty cool. I'm wondering if also it's for that. It's maybe I would assume some people in publishing are gamers too, and they get a sense of what some game devs have done with their past games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are, most of us, gamers, and we want to make games that we actually want to play. you know? So yeah, so we're playing everyone's games, and not just as a publisher, but as fans. And yeah, it's a real thrill to work with people, in development studios whose games that you really love. Like Thomas Was Alone. It's a great game.
Oh,
so yeah, it's really neat.
Thomas Alone was such a game, a good game back then. It really got me when I got through the whole thing. That was a pretty good game. I like that one. Okay, I can't think of. Is there anything important to impart about like advice for publishing, getting into it, or anything I might be missing?
No. One of the things I love about publishing is I'm the kind of person that wants to be on the ground floor of new things. Like, I get bored fairly easily. And so I've worked in the industry in other games where I've been, in the community manager, let's say, for, I've worked for an MMO, other games where, you kind of stick with that game. It's usually roughly a 2-year developmental process to make a game. And then that game will launch. And then, maybe 5 years total, that game's kind of being played really actively. And there's a lot of people talking about it. And so you're really kind of part of that, embedded in that for a long time. And there's definitely advantages of that. You really get to know the community and, be kind of close with people. And of course, the game really well, and you can speak to it. But one of the cool things about publishing is that we work with several teams at once and go through that process together. Sometimes they come to us maybe a year in development. Sometimes it's right from the beginning. So you're with them and you get to know the team that's making the game. And then that game launches, and we support that game after launch, but we also have like other games coming in. So it always feels like, something exciting is being made at any given time, and you don't get bored. It's always something new, something, coming through, many things at once.
That really does sound exciting. Like, that, just being a part of the whole thing just sounds really fun to me. Okay, now I remember. I'm not sure if this is a sensitive question. Just when it comes to the price of games, the publishers have to decide, like, what do they take into account when they think of pricing?
The existing market, what other games that are of a similar nature are costing right now. Of course, the economy and where we are right now is a sort of strange time. Mm-hmm. So those are definitely part of it. And then platforms themselves. It depends where you're launching first, things like that.
All right. Also, when it pertains to Steam, like when sales happen.
Yes.
When's the time to do that?
Well, I mean, it seems pretty typical in the sense that, they always have a summer sale and a winter sale and a spring sale, and then there's lunar sale, whatever you want to call it. You can kind of predict that. And as someone who buys games myself and, sometimes financially, challenged,
Yeah.
you definitely want to like look for that time. Usually when games launch, they're on a discount too, like anywhere from 10 to 25% off. It's a great time to pick something up for that short cycle. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a consideration. Steam is kind enough that you're working with them too. So there's a certain amount of times a year that you can say like, hey, I want to put my game on sale, and you have some control over that as well. Yeah.
Oh. Another aspect I want to ask about would be when it comes to, I'll use the word influencers.
Yeah.
How I got access to a number of Good Shepherd's games is as my content creator side, my influencer side. I was given the codes to these games. I was given codes to Hard Reset, Monster Train, Hard West, some of these games. How does it work for when it comes to that side of things? Like, you have influencers. How do I word this? Like, you seek out influencers, or you just you see if the big ones want to do it besides all the smaller guys and things like that, or
I mean, usually you have a list of people that are experts in a genre, and that would be really good to reach out to their existing audience because they play this type of game, and you certainly want to contact those people and offer them a chance to play something at launch. And it's great to make sure that people hear about your game, of course. So yeah, you have a list of people that you'll probably reach out to as a publisher through your PR company, or in this case, we have like a really great influencer relations person, Clara Sia. Sandbox is one of our PR companies, Indigo Pearl. So you have people that are spreading the word in the form of press release to, people that would be covering it. You have people that are reaching out to influencers that, are known to play this type of game. And then usually you'll have something like Keymailer for smaller influencers where they can hit that site and request that they'd like to play this game. And then you send them keys directly through that site.
Okay. Yeah, that's how they got me. Let's see. Are fellow publishers seen as like friendly competition, rivals? All
Are you asking for frenemies?
Yeah, are just other publishers like are there ever just they're fighting over a dev? Or I don't know if that's too personal. It's just what are they seen as? I guess frenemies is what they're seen as, or.
Well, developers will usually come to several publishers at once and pitch their game, and then kind of, it's in their best interest, of course, to choose who they feel like it's best to work with. Some of that's financial consideration. Some of it's, publishers have a type of game, a type of feel that, a lot of their games embody. So you might want to go to that publisher because you fit that descriptor. If you're looking for that. So there's a lot of reasons that people choose the publisher that they do. But certainly there's competition. You all know each other in the industry, and oftentimes you'll be called on to speak on panels together about publishing, and you get to know people. There's a lot of cool people that I know at other publishers.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of when I think of other publishers, like I'll think of Daedalic. There's a special kind of style to the games they have, or Calypso Media Digital, or I'm trying to think of another one. They do like Rise of Kings, but there's something like they're all about something around the realm of like Total War. So if you're a developer doing that, you of course would go over there, I suppose. And but when you have like a certain flavor to what you publish, do you try to branch out, or is it just once you find your niche of what people like about your games, is that just where you stay? Or
I mean, I can't speak for other publishers, but it's not really been the case with us. I mean, we have pretty diverse catalog. I mean, you're talking about like Where the Water Tastes Like Wine on one hand, and then Phantom Doctrine on the other hand. Transport Fever 2 is one of our really popular games, which is a tycoon simulator where you're basically creating transport from like 1860 for several hundred years. So there's a lot of different kinds of games, which is great because, honestly, if you're working for a publisher and you're not like a particular genre expert, you would be kind of awkward to have every single one of your games be that. I do a lot of live streaming for us, sharing the games, when they come out and during sales and things like that. So it's nice to have a variety of things that I can stream.
Speaking on that, how is it when, as a company, streaming? Like, what kind of chat do you guys deal with?
Oh no, it's usually pretty good, to be honest. Like, one of the things we do is like every Thursday, I think it is. Every Thursday, we have a Monster Train stream with the developers, like a Q&A, and people will come in and then ask, whatever they want. So that's pretty frequent with games that we'll have developers, on and sometimes streaming, and they'll answer questions. So most of the time, people are pretty polite. I mean, I'm lucky that way.
That's cool because I know sometimes the chat can be antagonistic, depending, I guess, on their whims. But
yeah, people like turn around when they know you're the publisher. It's like it's like if your parents in the room and you're just like, and then you're like very turn around. People are like, oh, I meant that the game had some strategic problems. I'm like, yeah. So most of the time, people are pretty nice. I mean, the worst is usually YouTube. Like if you release a trailer, there's a lot of discussion, especially depending on the platform that it's releasing for. Like if it's an Epic exclusive, or if it's only for PS4 and not for Xbox. Like people have obvious thoughts about that, and that's usually where you'll see a little bit more of that. But live streams, we've been lucky.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially if it's something they want and they can't play it. Like that always helps.
Exactly. How can you get mad at that, though? They're just like, I really want to play it where I'd like to play, because I want to play it. I'm like, well, okay, you're excited for the game. That's what I'm reading there.
Yeah, I always feel more disappointment. Like, for me, it's I have access to everything but PlayStation. So all those amazing PlayStation games, like, well, I wish I could play them.
I understand. I'm like really late to the game when it comes to Switch. I have a PS Vita. I was pretty loyal to my Vita, and I was like, I don't. When I travel a lot, but I really don't play it that much. I'm like, do I really want another handheld console that I'm not going to play, even though I'm publishing games for it? So I finally broke down and got a Switch recently, and then put it in its dock immediately, so it was on my TV like any other console. And yeah, I understand. Like there are so many games that came out, like Breath of the Wild, where just like, I really want to play this, and it's not available for anything that I have. So I get it.
Yeah. Okay. How has Epic affected things?
Affected things like what in the realm of competition?
Yeah, I guess in the realm of competition, how it affects publishers as well. Because of course it was just Steam. Well, there was GOG and all the other guys, and then Epic comes in going like, we want to be direct competition with Steam.
Yeah. I'm not in a great position to talk about that, other than to say we do have some games that come out that are Epic exclusive. That's more of like if you want to work the numbers on whether that's worth it for a developer, there's definitely a lot of thoughts on that, but I'm not your expert on that.
Okay, I am curious about that, but I don't know who I would ask about that. I guess an economist in a company would be the best person to ask, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there's people in publishing. Like we have people that are actually writing the contracts and making the deals, and they could probably speak to that, but I don't have any part in that.
Okay. Anything else within the way of publishing?
I mean, trade shows we do.
Ooh, oh, right. I didn't think about that.
Back in the day when there were trade shows, back in my day, we used to go to.
So, I'm sorry, you're saying PAX?
Yeah, PAX, Gamescom, E3, I don't know, all the biggies. Publishers are often responsible for the booth design. So I'm sure, you've seen us at some shows that you probably didn't realize. But we're actually pretty well known for having some pretty cool booth designs. But yeah, that's the thing. Like we'll do trade shows for developers, set up stations for people to play the game and get the word out that way. We're sort of moving away from that as situations change, but that is something that publishers do a lot.
For sure, I go to Comic-Con primarily, and it's been a great experience meeting with game devs or publishers at booths and asking a bunch of questions and them knowing a bunch of things. I think that's just a really good experience. I think it's a good goodwill gain, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can learn a lot by people's reaction. Usually by the time you're showing a game, it's fairly well along, but you can get people's feedback if you're interested in like a specific slice, which is good. Just general reception too, because that's definitely a competition and target heavy atmosphere. So, if your booth's got a line all the way around, then people want that.
Yeah. Okay. I suppose advertising is a thing to ask. I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess landscape has really changed on advertising at this point. It's more social media stuff and maybe banners. Does anyone do banners anymore for ads?
Yeah, ad banners for sure. Yeah. All of the social media platforms, that your typical ads are on is something publishers will arrange with ad agencies. They will track all that stuff for you, do A/B testing, see what, people are responding to. Publishers usually come up with the messaging of how a game is conveyed.
I think that's all I can think about for publishing questions. Unless there's any gaps you think that are worth mentioning for anyone who's interested in publishing?
I mean, maybe user testing might be like an aspect that people don't know about publishing. Like generally, a developer will, want community testing, or they'll want, and or probably plus and professional QA, which is something that publishers will also arrange through their contacts and people they work with normally. And then that gives you kind of any, let's call it supporting the game. So that's during the development stage when you have feedback that you'd like on certain areas for design or also bug check, things like that. And then once the game launches, it's really important to get immediate response from the community on what they're thinking about the game, but also if there's anything that needs attention, especially immediately. If there's a problem with actual exe files, like people can't download things, all the way from localization isn't quite right, or maybe there's some bugs, or sometimes it's just like, hey, this design is problematic and we're having understanding issues, or we can't play it the way that you're conveying it. So there's a lot of feedback back and forth once a game launches directly with the publisher, and you're usually speaking to a publisher on that, and they're sort of curating that feedback back to the developer so that they can make any needed changes.
Okay. I have a question. Localization.
Yeah, that's a publisher thing too. Yep.
Is the my understanding, I could be wrong, this is that the EU is a nightmare to localize?
in Europe?
Yeah.
Getting localization? No, I mean, I haven't heard anything odd like that. I mean, generally there's like specific languages that most games are localized into, and you kind of have the teams that already are expecting that. So once the developer completes a game and they have the entire strings of all of the text that's available, and they send that out to be translated into various languages, it's pretty expected. It's something we normally do. And then there's additional languages. Sometimes a lot of fans will request something, and then you'll go back and release that later. So there's always listening back and forth on okay, well, what does the market need right now, and what are the fans saying, and hopefully they align.
Cool. All right. Now I think that's everything. Well, everything I can think of as far as that goes. So, hopping to a different area, more you looking at your things. You do a podcast as well.
I do. Yes.
And you have 124 episodes on yours, I believe.
Yeah, probably. I don't I don't even know at this point.
Out of curiosity, what's your podcast about?
Have you ever seen Inside the Actor's Studio, like old school James Lipton?
Oh, that is honestly part of the inspiration for this podcast.
Okay, yeah. So I've been doing this, I want to say like 8 years or so, where developers will come on the show, talk about their inspirations, not usually about a specific game, but about them in the industry, how they got started, why they do what they do, who they are as people. It's really focused on a developer individually, one of the people, and then the shows are kind of built around that, and it's like a get to know you personal interview.
Ooh, okay. So that's basically what I want to do. So now I need to listen to your podcast.
Okay.
All right, now I need to listen to yours because that's basically what this is sort of like. I want to just interview people and just get a good understanding of their expertise, but also them. So now I want to listen to your podcast for sure. So pushing more on that, though, what's your experience in having podcasted for, you said, 8 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, like 8 years is a long time for the industry to change. Back then podcasts were like the hot new thing. Now everyone has a podcast, and you and I are competing against like everyone.
Yep.
Against everyone.
Everyone's...
moms in Utah, have podcasts. Everyone has podcasts. But yeah, so for me, this was like a way. I have a fine arts degree, so I graduated and got into graphic design, and it was really not where I wanted to be. And I'd been a gamer since I was young. I really liked games and like the creative aspect of the people that made games. So I wanted to kind of get into that industry and do talk about some of the things that I loved. So for me, making a podcast was like, hey, I want to talk to the people that are making the things I'm really excited about. So I started that and sort of broke into it, ended up getting a lot of guests from really big names to indie small companies. Like I had a big gambit, but that was a way for me to kind of get to know people that were in the industry, hear some really cool stories, and then also they know me. So that was my way of kind of getting where I am now.
Oh, wow. That's basically what I've been doing, but more with, I guess, content creators, so YouTubers and streamers and things like that. And
I see you do some streaming too, right?
yes, I do streaming myself like every day. I do it too much.
Okay.
But just this. I want to, because gaming's been my thing too. I've been in gaming for so long, so I want to talk to everyone I can. And like but with this one, I want like anyone to get Sheperd one in. And I got you, so that was great, fortuitous to meet you and learn all this.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It's fun to talk to other podcasters and other people that are interested in learning things.
Oh yeah. Like speaking of, let's say streaming, because you stream too. Well, streaming for a company as well. It's do you have to stream on every platform? Is it like Twitch? Well, it used to be Mixer, YouTube as well, or do you just pick a play? Well, I suppose you try to do everything, or how's that all work out?
Sometimes I had streamed on simultaneous Caffeine and Twitch, but lately we've been doing Twitch and Steam. Steam has a streaming platform as well, you probably know. So through Restream, I can just dual wield it, and that's a way for us, especially when a game first launches. It's really cool that Steam has this feature where, if you're looking at the game page and you're shopping on the game page, the stream opens up and it's at the top. So you can literally watch the game you're thinking about getting and, get a better look and say like, okay, well, this is really something that I want to play. Well, hey, now I can watch it, all in one place. So that's a great thing for people that are shopping. At least I use it when instead of looking up, gameplay for X on YouTube, do I really want to pay that money? Now you can see it.
Yeah, that has been a real nice feature of the Steam stores, having that, for sure. I agree. Okay. Getting guests for you, is it like, is it just through friends and then you just branch out from there? Or, like, I guess people that you know? Or have you done, like, just email? like I've emailed companies like, anyone interested? Like things like that, or is it just what's worked for you? Is I think the best question to get guests.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about 8 years ago, I mean, that's pretty lean where you're just trying to like have people on that you meet and know. At this point, like I have contacts with most of the, developers, so I can kind of reach out and say like, oh, hey, anyone feel like talking about, Ghost of Tsushima? So, I can have somebody on for that. So now that I'm on all the press lists and everything, like I usually get all notifications when something cool is coming out and, someone might want to talk about it. To be honest, I'm really lax at this point because it's one of those things like when you work in the industry, you just don't have time to do the things like for you. So I used to put out a show every week and that was my thing. Now it's like, 3 months will go by and I'll put a show out. And sometimes I'm essentially doing the Gray Area podcast, which is the name of my show, for Good Shepherd. So I'll be interviewing like the last, I think it was a month ago, for Monster Train. I had developers, the owner of Slay the Spire on to talk to the developers of Monster Train, and it was launch day, so they were like talking about the game, and they're big fans of each other, so they're talking about like playing and where they are and stuff like that. So I'm asking them the same kind of questions that I'm asking people on my show. So sometimes it kind of has a crossover in that way.
That's really cool. Well, the nice thing is you get to use your skills for your job. That's nice.
Yeah, it's useful. I mean, you'll find it like, I don't know what you want to do when you grow up, but yeah, definitely the skills will transfer.
That's nice. That's really nice. Also, just you got to have those people talking. That's really cool because Slay the Spire's awesome. Monster Train's awesome. So that's awesome is the only word I can use on that. That's cool. Nice. How did you decide on the name of your podcast?
Well, I mean, my last name's Gray, so it was like made to happen, right?
That's really good. That's really good. It's even better when you get to use like your name in a thing. That really helps out.
Yes, for sure.
Suddenly, I can't think of any examples, but it sounds great. I know I thought of some people.
You never forget. I mean, there certainly is that, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay, well, that's just a good one. Any luck with like Stitcher or with the big ones? I suppose like how you, because I think only Stitcher's the only one I think where it's more of you have to be really cool to get in. Well, everyone else is like what?
I was on Stitcher like early, so I don't know.
Okay.
It was a new platform when I was on there. I mean, iTunes I think is really like the place generally where most people download, but I mean it's an RSS, so any RSS reader will do. I mean, I have a website, but it's wherever people listen. Podbean. What's the new thing now? Like all of them. iHeartRadio. I have it on there, like everywhere.
Yeah, like as far as I know, like iHeartRadio, there's like, well, I think all RSS feeds just go there.
Yeah, they do.
Because iHeartRadio, I think, is the one that wants to be the end all be all, from what I can tell. Because they really push for it since they're, of course, radio. So
yes,
they want everyone to know that whatever you want, it's over there.
Yeah, well, it's a hard time for podcasts right now. Like, I don't spend as much time looking at my statistics because honestly, I don't care that much anymore. Yeah. But right now, most people would listen to podcasts when they were driving on their commute. At least that's where I do. I have podcasts I listen to. It's usually when I'm driving. And that's certainly happening less because people are, home for the pandemic. And you would think maybe they would sit and listen to it while they're working. But honestly, I feel like commutes it's just my instinct that that's a place where people listen more. So I feel like listenership of podcasts is challenging right now.
I think that sounds pretty true to me because when I did 1 or 2 years ago, there were hour-long commutes, like 1 to 2 hour long commutes, and so I was definitely listening to a lot of podcasts then. You're right on that one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot less people driving right now. Oh, there's way less people driving right now.
Yep.
I am curious to see what our current situation is will do to a lot of companies, because I know people from that are like they work for Sony
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. Everything is in house. They can't take any of their work home. So I'm not really sure how they're dealing with it right now because they can't actually talk
Oh,
about it at all. Actually,
yeah, things are definitely slower when you're reaching out to distribution platforms as everyone makes that transition. Yeah, it's definitely there are delays, COVID delays on games and getting it where it needs to be for sure. Thankfully, people are being pretty patient about that, which is nice.
as they should, considering it's a virus. So hopefully, we can get.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends. Like for us, I mean, our company is based in the Netherlands
Oh,
for its like parent part, and then we have an office in Austin as well. But so most of my colleagues, I mean, we're generally remote, global, so we're used to dealing with Slack, and we're used to dealing with all the tools already set up for us that make it pretty easy to just keep on going, and things are even busier in the industry than they were, I think, before. So, for us, it's not too bad a transition, but there definitely are places that it's a lot of scrambling. I mean, I'm sure Valve at Steam probably has a lot of scrambling to do
ooh,
to get ready, and you never think about that, like all of the other all of the other places that need to get things set up for your game to go.
I'm also curious about what this does for. Might not be something you haven't. Just a thought that's going out there is just the budget for cons. Like they're not
Yeah.
going there, so I wonder what happens with that, or if they're gonna, or maybe some publishers are trying to do like we'll use that money to just do more advertising in general or something like that.
There are digital game shows right now. I
Oh,
believe that there's an article that just came out last week about E3 saying that that was actually much more successful in terms of sales for game developers than an in-person meetup.
oh.
Um, so I believe this is probably an isolated incident because of the situation. I don't anticipate that conventions would go digital from now on or anything like that. But it was good to hear that people were still finding success and getting the word out. Even in a digital show like that. So, recently we had one as well, Guerrilla Collective, which was a bunch of like more indie based publishers that got together and did a whole weekend full of reveals. We announced the Eternal Cylinder was coming to PS4 and Xbox One. So for us, that was like where we would have normally, announced something during a big show. But for us, that was a way to get the word out that this game was going to be coming out. And, so far it's been pretty successful. People are aware, which is good.
Oh, that leads to a question. Do publishers help with porting? Is that all on the devs to figure out, or
Developers will actually do the work for it, but we do sometimes bring in people to assist with the
hmm.
technical side of it as well. Like it depends how focused they are on whatever they're doing, like post game. But that's one of the cool resources is like you have people that can bring, like for now, there's certain games that we have, a Switch port coming out. So we'll have someone come in and they can help, to do the actual technical stuff for that port. So it depends. I mean, that's all really kind of like a decision developers make if they need that.
Okay, so like I think one of the big lessons I think coming from this is just publishers are really important to game development, like and just getting the games out there. That's what I'm really hearing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like the smaller indies that are doing it all themselves with 10 people. I mean, that's a real challenge to be like everything, to do the development, to do the marketing, to do the social media, to do all the porting, to get everything out. I mean, that's why it's like a really saturated market. It's really hard if you're an indie developer to, strike that perfect note to get your game seen and in this market. So it's
Oh,
great if you can have a publisher who has all of these resources and all this expertise and people that can help you. That's like the purpose of publishers. Like we have these developers that really just want to make something they love, get it out there, and they're really focused on doing that. So we can do all the other things that enable them to do that.
a more personal question: how much does it break your heart when a really good indie game comes out and it's just not getting the love it deserves?
A lot. Yeah, especially if it's a game like I personally love,
Mhm.
or it's worse if I know the developers. Like,
Oh.
it's like, oh well, Billy, Billy
Mhm.
just put 2 years behind, this thing, and now he's got to face the reality that it's not going to be everything he dreamed it would be. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's like about the process, and I hope that developers take the time to kind of enjoy the fact that they're making something that's going to come out, and for some, it's hopefully satisfying to at least like create something that didn't exist, and then now it's out, and then some people love it. But adulation of the community doesn't always equal financial success.
Mm.
Like they don't always pair perfectly. I mean, you hope that you pick your publisher and you hope that everything goes wonderfully. It doesn't always, but that's the challenge of being like a self-published indie dev is you got to do it all.
That's one of the things that it's very unfortunate when indie dev they fail, but that's also you got to fail to learn things and succeed. Are there any like really good like rebound stories?
Oh yeah, like isn't Final Fantasy a Rebound story? Like wasn't that didn't they make that particular studio? I mean, you'd have to look this up and you should absolutely verify it after my story, but my along the rumor mill story was that there were, the developer had made a bunch of games, none of them were financially successful, and they made this one, they called it Final Fantasy because this is like the Final Fantasy game they're ever gonna make. And hey, guess what? Boom, it hit. And now we have, Final Fantasy 1.5 million.
Yeah, that sounds very close to what I believe I've heard for Final
Yeah.
Fantasy, or like Fire Emblem, which you might get more familiar with eventually since you have a Switch now. Uh, Fire Emblem, I think it was Awakening. It was going to be the last hurrah. It was going to be the last Fire Emblem game they were going to make. So they put in every idea they had, and it was a huge hit. So now we have Fire Emblems getting shoved down our throats now because it was so good.
There you go. I mean, that's the thing too. Like, very few developers, hit it is the first time they make a game. I mean, it's kind of unheard of.
Mhm.
Like, usually, that's why game jams are so cool. It's like you can go there and make a bunch of games and see how they do and everything. And hopefully you build a portfolio so that some of your games will do well and some of your games might not do well. But as a developer, you just keep making stuff that you're inspired to make, and maybe they're not all golden gems, but hopefully you're learning by making.
Yeah, so like I hope every dev that fails eventually gets a win somewhere. Is my hope. I'll believe that. But it is nice when they do make it out the park the first try, like Mike Bithell with Thomas Was Alone, or Lucas DePope with Papers, Please was a good hit when it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What I want to say, just cause for anyone who's a viewer of this podcast and that know me, I'm a big fan of Kirby. Also, HAL Laboratories. They had a situation like that too, where they spent way too much money on this big game they wanted to do, like a passion kind of game they wanted to do, and it failed miserably. And then they fell 6 million yen into debt, and instead of filing bankruptcy, Nintendo bought them. And then, but they still had to pay back the debt. And thankfully, Kirby happens the next year. So
nice.
Kirby's Dream Land, and then that entire franchise just comes from the lowest low that company was in, and now Kirby, of course, makes $1 bajillion.
Yeah,
Because I'm a big fan.
It's one of those things like an artist, you have to just really love what you do, and it's not like a lot of money necessarily. I mean, depends on your position and what you're doing, but it's really something like hopefully you love this because this is the thing you should get joy out of, because it doesn't always, you never know, like as a small indie company, but you never know. But that's why doing it yourself is kind of hard, and hopefully you'll have people that have expertise that can help you, like a publisher.
And that's really nice. So let's wrap this up. Where can people find you?
Well, hopefully they will go to Gray Area Podcast, GREY, spelled like European, GREY, grayareapodcast.com. You can see a list of my RSS and all my episodes there, or again, like iTunes, anywhere. And And then Twitter is like at Jenesee, Jenesee, or at Gray Area Podcast. Not like a huge, you can kind of imagine, like, I'm not a huge social media person myself. Like, I will tweet occasionally. I'm more of a Facebook person. But because I'm running, like, a million accounts for everyone else, sometimes I'm like, I just don't have I can't make my own content today.
And of course, there's Good Sheperd Entertainment, which is Good Sheperd ENT.
Good Sheperd. Good Sheperd.games, which is interesting. Yeah, it's Good Sheperd, SHEPHERD.games.
Nice. Oh, yeah, there it is. I have it right here. Good Sheperd.games.
And then at Good Sheperd Ent for Twitter, ENT.
Is there also like a Facebook presence?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Facebook. We're in all the places, basically, except Instagram.
Everybody Instagram. All right.
Yeah.
And I think that is everything. So just round this out with one thing, and that is, what's something that would be interesting for listeners to know?
Something, give me like a subject.
I guess suppose in gaming or in publishing or just in life. I don't know. I went for the James Lipton, like something cool.
Something cool. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, if you're the type of person that has a lot of, like, you're a jack of all trades, you like to do a little bit of everything, and you have a lot of like various skills of whatever levels, and you're interested in the gaming industry, think about publishing. It is definitely a viable option that a lot of people just are not aware of. And you don't have to be a coder, you don't have to be there with your C++. You can still be a part of the industry if that's something that inspires you, without having to be, a developer.
That's very good to know. Had I known about this, I'll say when I was in my early 20s, I would have looked into this for sure. So, then Jenesee Gray, the communications manager at Good Sheperd Entertainment. Thank you very much for being a guest. And thank you everyone for... Oh, sorry.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for watching and listening. And I'll see you all next time. I had fun. Hope everyone had fun listening. That's what's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.